Good evening, cadets. This is Lance here from Cinematic Galaxy, and I just wanted to bring you all my thoughts briefly on a lot of the recent news that has come out lately around Episode 9. Now, just to preface this, it's September, and we've only gotten one teaser for Episode 8, The Last Jedi, directed by Rian Johnson. So a lot of fans are still salivating for a new trailer. We've also gotten a behind-the-scenes featurette. That doesn't really count, even though it was cool. But yeah, so we're still waiting on that. And in the meantime, well, to preface things, Colin Trevorrow, who was previously slated to direct Episode 9, left the project. And I don't really know too much about that situation. I've heard some rumblings here and there. And some things, but I haven't really followed it enough to know. I don't know if it's exactly a Lord and Miller situation, like with the Han Solo film. I've heard different things that indicate both ways, but my thoughts on Colin Trevorrow leaving, I didn't really have much thoughts about it. I was cautiously optimistic about him directing the film, but I also wasn't overjoyed that he was directing the film, so when it was announced that he left the project, my thoughts were, I'm glad that it wasn't a case of Han Solo where the directors were fired. They were fired halfway through the project. I'm glad that it seemed like he left because, he felt he wanted to leave. And who knows what Kathleen Kennedy, what she had to do with that. But I was glad it happened before production, and I'm also glad that, I don't know if I'm glad he left. He just wasn't somebody that I ever pegged to direct that film, so it didn't disappoint me that he left. I did really like Jurassic World. I loved it initially, but upon rewatch, I don't think it's the greatest film. I think it's fun. I think it brought new life back to Jurassic Park, to the franchise, but I don't think the film really holds up that well upon rewatching unless you watch it just as a popcorn film, but it's cool. But yeah, so anyway, that's that. So regarding who's going to direct Episode 9, even though it didn't have a chance of happening, I wanted Steven Spielberg to do it. I wanted to see a Steven Spielberg Star Wars episodic film. Now, initially back in the day, I believe he was supposed to direct Return of the Jedi, and I know back in those days he did want to direct a Star Wars film, but I believe out of respect for George Lucas, he eventually said, I'll never do it. He declined directing Episode 1. So, he said he'd never do a Star Wars film, and thus far that's proven true. As far as other picks I wanted Brad Bird. I've wanted him to do a Star Wars film for a long time, ever since the new ones were announced. And Christopher McQuarrie was another thought I had, who directed Mission Impossible 5. So, but as far as who I thought probably would do it, Rian Johnson, who I also, assuming Episode 8 is great, which it looks like it will be, I wanted him to maybe come back. And then, but somewhere in the back of my head, I always thought, well, it'll probably be JJ Abrams. And sure enough, it is JJ Abrams. JJ directed The Force Awakens, which really relaunched this new Star Wars cinematic universe here, or cinematic franchise, not to mix it up with Marvel. And so anyway, my thoughts on that. Well, initially I was kind of underwhelmed to disappointed about it. Look, I really like The Force Awakens. In fact, I probably will say I love The Force Awakens. But for me, JJ Abrams, I think he's a great director. He's a very competent director. But I don't always think I think his films sometimes feature some lazy writing, to be quite frank, and every now and then some lazy humor. And I felt like, with The Force Awakens, some of it was too much of an homage. I do understand where people are coming from with that. Now, I love the film. I'm not a hater of the movie, but I think there's some validity to the criticisms of it. That's just my honest opinion. But all in all, so yeah, I was initially disappointed, and then I thought about it some more. I watched the Ken Napzok, Christian Harloff Collider discussion about it, where they both came at it from different sides, which made it a lot more interesting. And I have to say that upon watching that and seeing their points of view, and thinking about it some more on my own after the news settled, I'm pretty happy with JJ Abrams coming back. I'm not overjoyed about it. For one, it's a very safe choice. It's not really a bold choice. JJ is a safe choice to do a franchise film, and he's a safe choice now to do a Star Wars film. Um, it's not a daring, bold choice. He's not a brand new director. This isn't his first big film. He's done it, and he's been in that spot before. His task with Force Awakens was to open strong and to kind of bring Star Wars back for not only older generations but for new generations, and he did that. Whatever you think of the movie, he did that. And now his task is to close it, and to probably close it incredibly well after The Last Jedi is likely an epic film and likely one of the best Star Wars films ever made. Um, so so that's something that is just, you know, he's up to the plate. I mean, I think he's up to the plate, and I also think that he is somebody who will listen to the constructive criticism that The Force Awakens got. He's not going to listen to stuff like Jar Jar Abrams sucks and The Force Awakens is terrible. Like, why would he listen to that? I mean, construct your argument like an adult, and then you'll probably actually be listened to. If you say that kind of childish stuff, you're probably just going to be looked at like an idiot, and you deserve to be looked at that way. But if you're respectful and you're constructive in your criticisms of The Force Awakens, then I'm sure JJ has heard it. I'm sure Lucasfilm has heard it. I'm sure Kathleen Kennedy has heard it. And they're not just going to roll their eyes and toss that out. It's actually valuable stuff to listen to. That doesn't mean they have to take the fans' advice exactly, but but constructive criticism is always valuable. It's always something that each of us can learn about. Constructive criticism about ourselves, about anything we do, is something that anybody should welcome. But name calling and bashing the guy to the ground because you didn't like the film he did, why would that ever make things better? Are you really that sad and miserable of a person that you have to resort to that? I mean, you don't have to do that. You can state your criticisms like an adult. It's not being politically correct. It's just being a above average intellect human being, I guess. I don't know. Just not even that. Just being an adult. So yeah, I'm sure JJ, mini rant over. I'm sure JJ has heard those criticisms, and he is going to listen to them. I mean, and he's an awesome guy from everything I've seen. So going back to where I was saying with this, I feel really positive about him coming back. He wasn't my first choice. He probably wasn't my fifth choice. But minor criticisms of The Force Awakens aside, I'm a big fan of that film. I love The Force Awakens. It didn't fulfill my Star Wars love like Rogue One did, but as an introduction back into the fold of Star Wars, yeah, it was great. And the new characters, the actors were great. The characters were enthralling. I mean, I don't think Rey's a Mary Sue at all. I'm excited to see why she's so powerful. I don't have any issues with that stuff. Starkiller Base, I'm not a big fan of, but hey, I can get over it. It's really not that big a deal. So a lot of that stuff, I mean, JJ, I think, did some great things with The Force Awakens, and the flaws of that film aren't solely to be based on him. It kind of goes all around. A film is a collaborative process. So, but ultimately, I think that film delivered incredibly well, and The Last Jedi probably will, and I'm sure Episode IX will. Yeah, he's a safe choice, but we know he can close it out. And again, it's going to be a collaborative effort. He'll probably surprise us too. So yeah, that wasn't incredibly insightful. It was mainly just me giving my thoughts on JJ Abrams coming back and everything else around this. Oh, and also Star Wars Episode IX was pushed back to December. So that's something that I think is great. It gives him more time to work on his story. It gives him more time to shoot and edit and all that stuff, and perfect the visuals and all that. And it means that every film of this new Star Wars trilogy will have been in December, as well as Rogue One. As of now, Han Solo is still scheduled for May 25th next year. We'll see how that goes, but I love December as Star Wars month. I think that's awesome. It coincides with Christmas. It's a lot of fun. You can kind of plan around that in the year. I love December as a new home for Star Wars, so I think that's nothing but great. Anyway, guys, thanks as always for watching, and just let me know your thoughts on JJ Abrams being back, down below. And if you're not happy with him, who would you have chosen? And if you are happy with him, how do you feel? Are you kind of lukewarm on it? Anyway, have a great night, and this is Lance from Cinematic Galaxy, signing off.